This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome to the Elevate Construction Podcast. This is Rena, the producer, and this is the second of 9 podcast episodes recorded in 2017 after implementing Lean on a project. You will hear the voices of Smalley and Jason Schroeder as they reflect on the successes and failures of their experiment. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to the second podcast of our series. This is Jake and Jason. I'm here to enlighten you and tell you about our experiences here at BSRL regarding Lean, and hopefully you guys can glean something off of this and use it on your current project.
So the topic for today will be the art of attack. And so we'll go ahead and do a quick little introduction. So on our project, we've been able to, like we said before, steal a bunch of great ideas and implement a bunch of great ideas, but we've also been able to do a lot of planning and preparing left of the line, as our scheduling folks are saying recently, which is that we had plenty of time in pre-construction before we reached the GMP and broke ground to plan the project out right and do what was needed. So for me personally, I was on the project a year before it began and actually got some requests to go do other projects and kind of take my focus off of this. Anyway, I said no. I said, I want to focus and stay here and make sure that this goes right. Oh, by the way, Jake, you want to talk about our goal, our accomplishment yesterday?
Oh, we received our substantial completion on time to the date. Super success. Everyone's super happy. Owner loves us. We love them. I mean, it's a big love fest here, but it was great.
And she gave us a neat compliment. She said we were best in class for the projects that they have done. So we're just really happy. So a couple of things. There's this really great book called An Unbeatable Mind, and he quotes something that was in Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and that said, basically, win the battle before going to war, meaning you have to have a plan to win before you go to war. And just roughly, I think what the quote was is that great generals win the war before they go to battle, and poor generals go to battle and then try and win as they're fighting. Something like that. I didn't say that exactly right. And then in the 33 Strategies of War, which again I would recommend to any superintendent, there's numerous stories about the art of attack where they mentioned that Napoleon would lay down on these huge maps before he went to war, just poring over these maps and making plan A, B, C, D, E, and F, just for days and days, sometimes weeks. And he would go into a campaign to try and, conquer his enemy or the people he is going after, and something would go wrong. And then without any emotion, he would just switch directions. And then something else would go wrong. And then without doing anything, he would change directions. And then something else would go wrong, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, but he would still win the war. And people were amazed at this. And it's because he had a plan, and actually a plan A, B, C, or D for anything that he was trying to do. So that's kind of what we're talking about here, is that if you're going to start a lean project, if we want to go implement these things that provide consistency and flow and a happy workforce and a project that meets the customer's needs, we have to plan ahead of time.
Agree. So, and just to touch on that, one of the successes that I seen, because Jason was here a year before broke ground.
Yeah.
So a year before he broke ground, I came to the day I was here when we broke ground. And for me, doing all the planning and stuff, and, me being the interiors guy, I didn't really had stuff to do, but I didn't have a lot of interiors work to do. So there's a lot of pre-planning that I got to look at, study the drawings, a lot of stuff, but it was real refreshing once we got going that a lot of this was taken care of. And I know Jason will talk on this, but one of the best things that happened on this project is everything was built into the contracts. And that allowed people to do and not to worry about these crazy lean processes that they hadn't done before and weren't comfortable with, and to kind of buy on because they weren't having their PM scream at them or, talking to them about wasting a half an hour every morning to do pre-planning and cleaning and organize. And that's just one of the things that we did. And it was super successful. It was refreshing.
That's awesome. So we're going to take you through a couple of things. This is actually the hardest podcast in the series because we actually have a write-up on this, and we'll just take you through a couple of these things. So for the art of attack, the purpose of the art of attack, when we talk about that, getting everything planned to the left of the line, is to basically command with purpose and better control the outcomes. And I really like the thought command and control. Now, when some people hear the thought command and control, they think, oh, you're dictating. It's the same old, just tell the trade partners or the subcontractors in this instance what they're supposed to do, shove the schedule down their throat. That's not what I'm talking about. What command and control means to me is that the team, the group, the trade partners, your last planner system sets goals and sets the schedule and sets plans, and the general contractor has the wherewithal to control that plan, protect that plan, and make sure that other trade partners don't detract from that. And so when I see projects that are over budget, that are behind schedule, they have poor quality, there's no cleanliness on site, there's really no schedule system that's supported by lean or the last planner system, I believe it's because you don't have a leader on site. And when I say there's no leader on site, that means it's the GC's job to control the outcomes and control the environment so all of the trade partners can succeed. For instance, on our job, our electrician is just absolutely amazing. They are A++++. And so some of the other trade partners are not A+++++. And if we didn't try and raise everyone to the same level, our electrician couldn't succeed to their ability. And so it's the general contractor's job, in my opinion, in our opinion, to make sure that we have a playing field where everyone can succeed. And so that's what we mean by command and controls. We have to create that environment.
But, and you kind of touched on this, but the only thing that I would add is you need to be sure to hold people accountable. Yeah. You're raising the bar, but, everyone's probably heard the term raising tide raises all ships, but you can't let people drown, and you have to hold them accountable. So you have to make them swim. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how we did it, and it worked out here.
So absolutely. I like what you said, Jake. So the next little segment is that construction is war, variation and waste is the enemy. So I'm going to read you a quote real quick. And this is from Patton. So if any of this language is disagreeable, it's a direct quote. It's not from me. It says, the Nazis are the enemy. Wade into them. Spill their blood or they will spill yours. When shells are hitting all around you and you wipe the dirt from your face and you realize it's not dirt, it's the blood and gut of what was once your best friend, you'll know what to do. So, and I don't know if you guys like the movie Patton. Jake and I absolutely love that movie. But when I hear that, it's kind of like, yeah, let's go. We need to fight the enemy. And I feel like construction is pretty close to, we're not killing people out there and we're not at war, but it's a lot like war, and a lot of the same principles apply. And so Patton also said, battle is the most significant competition in which man can indulge. It brings out all that is best and removes all that is base. And so when I look at that, I think to myself, construction is kind of the same way. We have the ability to fight waste and variation and all the things that tear down companies, projects, people, that get people hurt, that make people go home, angry at the end of the day, that make them not love their job, that make people look down on construction workers, that make us lose fee. Any of those things, any of that waste and variation that creates that stuff are things that we can fight against and eliminate, and we are at war every day. So go ahead, Jay.
And here's something. We talk about finding out what those things are. One of the things that we did, and we've had comments from a lot of the tradesmen, not just foremen and superintendents. We've had our journeymen come up to us and say, hey guys, like the reason that this is working out here, we really appreciate it. But the reason it's working is because you guys have communicated and you ask us for what changes need to be made. So don't be afraid. And I would urge you to circle everybody in. And I think as we go through this podcast and talk about a lot of things that we implemented, you'll realize that from the top to bottom, left to right, in all directions, everyone was communicated and was given the opportunity to give us their opinion. And we took a lot of those things and used them. So a lot of these things we didn't come up with, we got from tradesmen, other superintendents, other things that from our trade partners, and it ended up working out great. And God, I say that a lot.
Yeah, well, you're doing a good job. But yeah, I agree with you. So when we say the art of attack and when we say command and control, it's not about the GC dictating stuff. It's about the whole team, but it's on us to protect them. Because if you and I weren't keeping a controlled environment and enforcing things or raising the bar, like you said, then our electrician would be just as mediocre as everybody else. But he can do what he does because everyone else sticks to our flow and we hold him accountable. So I love that. So basically, in war, the things that bombs and bullets and, any kind of war strategy used to do negatively in war, men do in construction with bad attitudes, laziness, ignorance, any of these things that will tear down the team. And so we have to fight against that. And the only way that we do that is, and I'll talk about this in just a minute, but is our ability to attack and to prepare and to hold people accountable. And another quote that Patton said was, "A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week." And I will say that our owner did not want us to be super rigid and say we had to do this, this, and this. They wanted us to be nimble. And so what we have is we have smaller organizational units on site, and we are nimble, and we will execute quickly, and we will not go into so much detail that we can't move quickly. So we very much follow this, is that when we are entering into an effort and the owner asks for something, we will come up with a plan with our trade partners, hold the line, and drive forward. And that's just been kind of something that we've held this entire time. And we're not talking about rashness or irresponsible haste. We're not talking about moving forward and attacking and doing stupid things on site. We're talking about a proper amount of planning. We're talking a proper amount of buy-in with our trade partners. We're talking about moving quickly and having the team acting as a unit. And because problems will always arise on the site. There's going to be problems with the air handlers. There are going to be problems with quality install. There's going to be RFIs that come up. And for everything that we do, we have to get ahead of those things. Here's another quote from Patton. "I don't want any messages saying I'm holding my position. We're not holding anything. We're advancing constantly, and we're not interested in holding anything except the enemy. We're going to hold him, and we're going to kick him all the time and kick the living hell out of him all the time. Our plan of operation is to advance and keep on advancing. We're going to go through the enemy like crab through a goose."
That was edited, by the way. So if you really want to know, you should Google that because it's pretty funny.
Yeah, you might get an EEO complaint, but anyway,
It's a quote.
it's a quote. And then he goes on to say, "There will be some complaints that we're pushing our people too hard. I don't care about such complaints. I believe that an ounce of sweat will save a gallon of blood. The harder we push, the more Germans we kill. The more Germans we kill, the fewer of our men will be killed. Pushing harder means fewer casualties. I want you all to remember that. My men don't surrender." And here's another point that I think we need to bring up right now, is that our motto has always been clean and steady.
I was thinking the same thing.
The clean, yeah,
So Jason just said we push. But although we were steady, we never pushed anyone to do anything unsafe
or work fast.
or work fast. It was always clean and steady. So if you go through, everyone on the job knew it in Spanish or in English, limpio y constante or clean and steady. Either way, everyone knew that, and that's what we repeated in the morning huddles. That's what we told the guys. That's all we expect from you. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, is about the guys knew the expectations, and we got a lot of ideas from people, but that was one of the things that we implemented.
I totally agree. So I remember, you remember this too, Jake, when we were doing concrete, we were right down to the end of the schedule. And if they started working too fast, we shut the whole crew down. We were like, you guys are not. And this is what we used to say, is that there are some superintendents that will come out here and tell workers to work faster. That is stupid. Nobody benefits from that. Workers should work clean, safe, steady. When we're talking about the art of attack and we're talking about pushing, we're talking about planning.
Well, let's talk about why. Why is that stupid, Jason?
Well, it's stupid because you're going to get somebody hurt. It's stupid because it's not lean to go throw just a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of extra time, have the workers go faster, be like, hey guys, you have to get this done. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Like, somebody's going to get hurt. So we tell the worker, and it was kind of hard for him too, if you remember, Jake, is that they would always say, well, I got to get this done. No, you have to do it safely. You have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, we're going to tear it out, and you have to do it in a clean manner. And the art of attack, where we say we're pushing, is on the planning, the coordination, the clarity, getting out ahead of problems, making sure your RFIs are out ahead, looking at roadblocks way ahead. That's what we're talking about. And that's the difference between the art of attack and attack. Like I said, if a superintendent just goes and pushes, he's just attacking. The art of attack is planning, preparation, creativity, setting up the battlefield so that we win, so workers can go sick. Go.
One of the creative things that we did out here was we focused on balancing manpower. And that was huge because the guys would get frustrated because they knew they had to hit the date. But a lot of times when we were pushing to get done and make that date, it was never a, you guys have to work faster, out of control, do all that stuff, unsafe, anything like that. It was a, hey guys, so can we balance manpower? Now, I don't know how everyone's market is, but down here in Tucson, there's a manpower, I don't know, you want to call it shortage? Yeah, it's very overstated. There's a lot of work going on down here, and there's a lot of people being pulled in every direction. So we face that, but that's what we had to do. And I know, back to being bought outright and being at it, that was all part of the pre-planning process, making sure that the trade partners knew we were going to stick to the schedule. We weren't going to go faster or slower. We were going to stay steady. And that way it was on them to balance their manpower and figure out that ratio of how many guys to have to where basically to get the throughput that they needed.
Absolutely. I like the way you said that. So if nobody can see my hands, but if you had 4 little bar graphs, and one was cost, one was manpower, one was schedule, one was safety, one was cleanliness. The schedule, or the safety, cleanliness, and speed of the workers is fixed. You're not going to you might decrease it a little bit, but you're not going to increase these. The only variables is, like Jake's saying, is planning enough manpower ahead of time, having a dynamic schedule, making sure you're paid for the right things. Those are the only dials that you could turn. We're not going to turn the speed of the workers. We're not going to make it unsafe. We're not going to have unquality products. You like that?
I like that.
Yeah, Jake's over here making anyway. Here's spiking their football down in the end zone over here. So here are a couple of examples.
It was also like a touchdown, it was both.
I like
them and Nancy.
So Jake and I, on our last job, we experienced a couple different styles. We had a superintendent that we worked with on our last job that said, I'm not canceling any concrete placement. Once I do that, the guys think I'll cancel it every time. And so there was no effort to keep people steady. There was no effort to keep it clean, no effort to keep anything quality. He would just drive and push and push and push, and all at the expense of quality, safety, and organization. Often deck placements, they had missing embeds. There were columns out of place by 2.5 inches. They were out of skew. They were missing reinforcing. I mean, it was a god-awful nightmare. I mean, horrible. That is not the art of attack. That's just blindly, stupidly attacking. The art of attack, like we'll talk about later, is artistically taking advantage of opportunities and planning and driving forward and trying to eliminate waste. The other superintendent, you'll remember this, Jake, he wasn't our favorite superintendent to work with. But he was the opposite. There was no attack. He would hardly do anything. He was analytical and hesitant, and he would overthink everything. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? Anyway, he was always toiling away, perfecting non-essential parts of the project. I remember at the end of the job, the stairs hadn't started, and he was still trying to perfect this little light strip at the bottom of the base and wouldn't get anything else started. And I remember those stairs finished just barely on time because he just would not go. And the only reason that those stairs started is because we intervened. So not attacking, analyzing everything, waiting is neither the art of attack either, because you don't get out ahead. You don't get people started. You don't work on your plan. You're always trying to work your plan to perfection, which, like Patton said, a good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan next week, because you lose opportunities and waste overtakes you.
All I'll add, sometimes, not all the time, Jason and I, we get hung up. We don't always agree with each other on this, because sometimes I see there is every once in a while a reason to wait. But what I have learned, when we don't wait and we go, the benefit of that is, especially we just talked about our buddy that we like so much,
It's funny,
and his stair issue. sitting there waiting to design this teeny little light strip. One of the things that took so long is he didn't get people started, and there were other problems. So getting going and attacking it lets you see the roadblocks out in front of you, or constraints, whatever you want to call them. We call them roadblocks. It helps you vet out those and see what's going, because you're going to run into other problems. Everyone knows that it's construction. You always have either a design issue or something's built a little not exactly per drawing. We have to manipulate it and make it work. So that's all I'll add there.
I love the way you said that. So we're talking about somewhere in between. There's an artistic center here between superintendents that just say, push, 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 I don't care, install, and then you have to rework everything, right? Like that's not good. And then there are other superintendents that are so hesitant that they'll wait. And like you said, they won't get people started, and then problems arise and they're behind schedule. There's a middle ground where you push the planning, preparation, and coordination of everything, but you drive the work and you know when to wait with certain work, and you get that balance to where you install quality work on time in a consistent manner. But also, Jake, is something that you and I preach, is that where we're not jockeying the schedule forward and back so they never know how to plan materials. So we do have consistent schedules where materials, manpower, and things are predictable. But in order to prevent the delay of those schedules, we will artistically attack in the preparation of every part of that effort. True. So 2 quick examples from history. Many generals in history have been pushers, but General Custer learned firsthand about the effects of pushing, irresponsible pushing. Custer had the classic style of a pusher. When he was at West Point, he constantly pushed authority and received 199 demerits in 1 year. He pushed his men hard, and he was famously known for the Custer Charge. And that tactic he ruthlessly employed throughout the Civil War. This pushing mentality worked well at Gettysburg, but in that effort, he had the support of planning and other supportive elements. And so that's more of what Jake and I are talking about. But his men paid a high price for this success, and his unit had disproportionately high casualty rates. The problem with his leadership style was shown in epic fashion when he pushed too hard at Little Bighorn. He rushed into a battle without planning or knowledge. So that's where you depart from the art of attack. You have to have planning and knowledge. So he rushed into the battle at Little Bighorn without planning or knowledge, with no other supportive elements of what we're talking about. His 208 men charged into the largest gathering of Plains Indians in history. Over 2,000 warriors met his charge, and he was overpowered. He was forced into a defensive posture known as Custer's Last Stand, and the result was his death and the death of most of his troops in his devastating and legendary defeat. And so, we saw that when in the Civil War, when he is pushing with planning ahead of time, knowledge of when to push and when not to push, and with all of his supportive elements, he did fine. When he started to push stupidly, is what I would say, he met defeat. And even though it's legendary and everybody talks about it, everyone's dead. That didn't work out too well. So here's another one. George McClellan in the Civil War. He was an extremely skilled officer at West Point, and he was thought to be a young Napoleon. But he was hesitant and overthought things, which did not bode well against the fast-moving and aggressive South, and particularly Robert E. Lee in the 7 Days battles. He also botched an opportunity of completely destroying Lee's army in the Battle of Antietam. How do you say that? Antietam. I don't know. Anyway, one of those legendary battles, which led to his removal and potentially caused the war to continue for another 2.5 years. And so every book I read, when I read about Abraham Lincoln, I read about how he could not get his army to advance on the South. And so that kind of hesitant. And what happened is they kept meeting problems. Weather, they crossed the river, they lost an opportunity. Something else came up because they would not drive and seize their opportunities. And I really like that, seize opportunities, because like you said, Jake, there are sometimes, and he and I have had a kind of a funny interchange lately about bringing in equipment into the cafe out here on site. And I'm like, let's get it in. He's like, wait, Jason, bro, this stuff's going to walk off, because we didn't have the exterior doors. There was a change that prevented those from locking. And he had to tell me, quite frankly, look, we need to wait. So there are times where we need to wait, and that's right. But there are other times where there's an opportunity and we have to seize it, and we have to destroy the enemy, which is waste and variation. So there's a balance of leadership. one important aspect of the art of attack is the priority of balancing the total workflow of the project, like the throughput Jake's saying, and to evaluate the balance between planning and execution. So you'll find that the more planning that you can do, the better your execution will be. So 1 hour of careful planning can easily save tens and hundreds of man hours, prevent needless material waste, and prevent scheduling collisions and increase job site morale. That comes from planning. This is one of the single most value-added concepts to realize.
So this is what I'll say. I don't know if every Jake Smalley job will be as many meetings as we had at this Jason Schroeder job. And that's what everyone said. That's what everyone says. But for when we first started out, I've become pretty good friends and gotten to know some of the good old boys down here in Tucson that have been around for a long time. And they would give me crap. Hey, Jake, we would go hunting and they would say, well, we need to park on the side of the road and have a meeting before we go do this. And then can we have a meeting when we park after we've driven to where we're going to hunt? And they would kind of mock me a little bit. And I kind of just brushed it off and said, whatever, you guys are just babies and all that stuff. Now they still make a few comments, but they know that it worked. So it was just kind of like eating milk chocolate, baby. Because if you've got to, just like Jason said, a 1 hour planning meeting can eat up so much unprepped time in the field. It's not even funny. So remember that one, because that's golden.
The other thing is, Jake and I talk a lot about respecting the people in the field. Who should be made comfortable? Us, the coordinators who don't like meetings? Or should we have meetings that are uncomfortable so that we can create a consistent, stable environment for the worker and make him or her comfortable? So if we answer that question honestly, we want to take the time to plan so that the workers out in the field know every day what they're going to do. They have a stable environment. They go do their work. They have high morale. They're safe. They install their product. Right? And so I think what I hear when you talk about that, Jake, is that they don't like the inconvenience of the meetings, but it's benefiting the field workers.
True. I agree.
No, and I love exactly what you talked about. So there's definitely a balance. So here's a quote from Master Sun in The Art of War. Thus we have heard of stupid haste in war, which we're not talking about, just a little side note. Cleverness has never been associated with long delays. And that's what we're talking about. We cannot be stupid, ignorant, and unlearned in the art of planning and organization to the expense of our men and the cause we're pursuing out there on site. We also cannot sustain long delays like the second examples that we cited. Waiting and delay, when unnecessary, brings with it a number of unintended consequences that are not always easily seen, but are heavy prices to pay. And so we have to find that balance. We're going to go on to the next little section. So there's two risks in war. And this is a quote from Patton again. Every soldier should realize that casualties in battle are the result of two factors. First, effective enemy fire, and second, the time during which the soldier is exposed to that fire. The enemy's effectiveness in fire is reduced by your fire or by night attacks. The time you're exposed is reduced by the rapidity of your advance. And so I just wanted to read this because what Jake was saying is you have to reduce the amount of time that you're under attack by waste. The longer you wait in an area, the more stuff's going to arise. The more other people will need to get in the area. The more materials that will end up there. The more times you have to move stuff. The more RFIs you have. The more times the designers can look at it and want to change it. Like, the longer you're under the enemy fire of waste and variation, the greater you are at risk. So to close, the enemy fire can be changes, delays, defects, job site entropy, missed opportunities, lost windows of time. The longer we wait to advance in any effort, the more issues will arise, especially with the planning and preparation. I want to modify part of Patton's quote. Everyone should realize that casualties to success are the result of two factors. And this is like we're taking Patton's quote into the construction world. First, the effect of wasted variation on all the best laid plans, and then second, the amount of time we allow our activities and plans to be reduced and diminished by that waste and variation. The negative effect of entropy can only be attacked by a violent and effective effort to organize and overcome, and the exposure to waste and variation and the effects of their derailment of all of your efforts is reduced by the rapidity of your advance. And so the bottom line is something's always going to go wrong, and we have to move forward. Rapidity is the essence of war. Take advantage of the enemies and readiness, make your way through unexpected routes, and attack unguarded posts. And so in construction, what that means is that when the construction team has made plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we're heading towards an effort, and we see an opportunity to safely, quality, and steadily drive forward, complete something, and benefit the workforce, we do so. And people without a plan cannot do that. Awesome. So, and here's just a couple of quick things. So nobody has ever defended anything successfully. There's only attack and attack and attack some more. When I mention it, it relates to planning. So defense is stagnant. The reason that no citadel or defense or stronghold has ever held is because when you're just sitting there in a defensive position, somebody else is going to take you over. You know what I mean? You cannot sit on things. You will get outpaced. So there's another quote that says, I don't want to get any messages saying that we're holding our position. The reason Patton in war never held his position is because when he was attacking the Nazis, if he gave them a minute to regroup, that was an awesome fighting machine. You know, they could regroup and attack his army. He was advancing to always keep them on their toes. They were always retreating. They were always trying to figure out how to get to demolish bridges and get their tanks out and everything else. He never gave them time to think. And so when we plan an attack, we never allow the opportunity to get overtaken by that waste and variation. And then there's also another psychological effect, and you've seen this too, Jake, from about other people. And you and I may have been in this situation, but once you're behind the 8 ball, you can never catch up. You know what I mean? Like once you and I are derailed and we're out there trying to figure out problems all day, fight fires all day, babysit everybody all day, try and clean up all day because people aren't disciplined, what are we doing? Are we doing any planning?
No, you're spinning your tires in the mud.
Absolutely. And Jake and I had this conversation. We said, if we can get derailed, if the trade partners can force us to start doing their office work, start doing their RFIs, start managing their cleaning with composite cleanup crews, start doing all of this stuff for them, then Jake and I aren't watching for safety, quality, schedule, any of those things. We're not doing our jobs now.
So and trying to implement this, you'll get comments made to you by like, well, on every other job that I've been on, that's how they did it. We had a composite cleanup and they just cleaned up for us, you know, and holding strong to what the plan is and not modifying it. So I don't think in this segment we're going to really get on tack time, but when we get into tack time, it applies all over the place, not changing the plan and staying to it. Not saying you can't modify and be nimble, not saying that, but stuff like that, like the composite cleanup crew, and it was never in the plan to do that, and everyone bought in from the start, goes back to holding them accountable and making them do what they say they're going to do. Because you're going to do it, and they need to do it also. So it goes both ways.
Absolutely. So Jake, that was perfect. I'm going to say it in different words. Jake's saying we've never, not once in 2 years, had a composite cleanup crew. Ever. And we have probably the cleanest job site in our area. Ever. We said at the beginning, we're not going to get derailed. You're going to have your right office staff and write your own RFIs. You're going to clean up your own messes. You're going to control your own areas. And you're going to follow these rules. The other thing is, like, even something as simple as the foreman safety walks. How many times do people go around and say, hey, can you turn in your foreman safety walk? Can you turn in? I was like, bro, I ain't doing it. You have to have it to me by Wednesday, and I'm going to put a grading sheet out to everybody, and whoever doesn't have it gets an F. And I'm emailing this to every one of your PMs, your owners, the university, and God angels and these witnesses. Like, everybody on earth is going to see that you did do this, because I'm not going to waste time tracking you down. So did I get that right, Jay? Yeah. So absolutely amazing. So let's just do some closing thoughts on the art of attack. What do you want people to know after all of this stuff that we've said? Hopefully we haven't bored anybody, but what do you want the closing statement, or you want me to go first? Go first. All right. So I would say that most of our success comes from planning left of the line, being in pre-construction, setting up the plans, coordinating with contractors, having a proper culture where we did not dictate the schedule. We did it with the contractors, but then once we had the plan, we protected it. Everything we did, we had a plan A, B, C, or D. So when the owner sent something our way, we were nimble. We were like Napoleon's small armies. Instead of this big army, I think it was in Austria, they had this big rank and file army. It was hard to move it left or right or forward or anything. And Napoleon dispatched these small military units, and he could say, go here, go here, go here. And they absolutely overwhelmed all of their enemies. That's how we're set up at BS Rail. We have an exterior team, an interiors team, and a basement team, nimble and can react quickly and move forward. And so that planning and preparation has set us up to where we've been able to win the war before going to battle. And it's not hasty pushing, and it's not hesitancy. It's some artistic balance in the middle where you've planned, you've prepared, and you have the right support structure. And I would just close by saying, for me, the reason clean and steady was always our motto is because we wanted people to say or get through their heads that violently attacking and driving forward has nothing to do with workers working fast. It has to do with the management being uncomfortable in the fact that they have to plan, prepare, have plan A, B, C, or D, have the right safety materials, have everything that the workers need to create a stable environment so that that worker can go be comforted or be comfortable in the field, safe, doing what he or she needs to do. And that's really what the art of attack means. And it does not mean workers going fast. And so that's what I would just say. And that's been the key to our success.
I just think that all I'll end with is nimble. And when I think about us being nimble and being flexible, I just always go, maybe this is, go ahead, obvious or whatever. Anyone can give me crap for this, but I envision, if anyone's ever seen someone molding like a clay pot or something, and they're spinning on the turntable or whatever you call it. And the duration of construction is basically the time that you have before that clay dries up, before you can put it in the oven to bake. But as it's all wet and it's very malleable, and you can watch those people work with that clay, and they can form it however they want. They know it's all going to end up being a pot or whatever they're set out to be. But in the meantime, while they're forming it, if they want, they can change the shape, but they've got to finish on time. Like we did yesterday.
Time to get it done.
We did yesterday, but you have to staying nimble and flexible is key. That's all I'll end.
Like that. And this is our least funny podcast. I promise you we'll have better sense of humor on the future one. So I'll leave you with a Chuck Norris joke that I really like. When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he already had 2 missed calls from Chuck Norris. That's one of my favorites. Anyway, we'll see you. We love you. We'll hit you up on the next one. What's our next one going to be? The next one's going to be incentive and survival, and we'll talk about how zero tolerance policies really created the survival. They're basically raised the bar for survival on site. And then we'll lead into some of the things for incentive that we had that really won over the workforce. And so we'll see you on the next one. You want to say anything, Jake?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Say it here.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.